Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And this video is the next in the Casey Anthony trial, and it's Cindy Anthony part 3. It's the defence's turn, and in all honesty I'm quite nervous for Cindy. I really don't know how this is going to go. So they start talking about how Cindy and Casey are very much alike in a lot of ways, and that Cindy raised Casey to be a caring, loving person and to always tell the truth. She says Casey was a very loving and very caring mother. She had an easy and quick maternal instinct that was very evident as soon as Kaylee was born. And she says Casey reminded her of herself when she first had Casey and Lee. She says Kaylee adored Casey and her eyes would just light up. She said Kaylee didn't want to sleep without her mum and she just absolutely adored her. She never witnessed Casey torture or abuse Kaylee. Now we go back to the fact that, Cindy not noticing Casey was pregnant. I haven't seen the photo personally, they haven't showed it in court, but there's obviously a picture of Casey at Cindy's brother's wedding, and it must be evident that she's got a bit of a belly there, and Baez is stuck on the fact that how they didn't notice, he doesn't know. So, it goes back to the argument that Cindy and George thought it was just purely because she had a desk job and she was more sedentary than she used to be, and she, it was just weight. So then Baez gets Casey to stand up so Cindy can see her weight situation since being in prison for the past 3 years. Mind-blowing. I don't get it. But Cindy does admit that Casey isn't as big as she was at the time of the wedding. They then start to discuss Casey's periods, which at one point it's just halted because I don't even know what the point of that is. Next they move on to the father of Kaylee. So as previously said, Casey tells them it's Jesse, but they do the DNA test and it turns out it's not him. So then after Kaylee was born, she tells them it was someone called Eric Baker, who is 2 years younger than Casey, so that would have made him 17 at the time. He was an old friend of Casey's. Casey had spent one night with Eric as he was having problems with his girlfriend. She was still seeing Jesse. Cindy didn't want to meet Eric or speak to him, and neither did Casey. So a couple of weeks after Kaylee's second birthday, Casey called Cindy and she was hysterical. She told Cindy that Kaylee's father had been involved in a car accident and also told her that Kaylee had a half-brother. These lies are something that I have never ever seen before. Eric is not on Kaylee's birth certificate. There is no name of a father on her birth certificate. So now we move on to Jeff Hopkins. Casey was engaged to Jesse in February of 2006. Casey and Jesse were having issues. Casey told Cindy about someone she worked with at Universal, and he had a little boy, and Casey thought this guy was nice. So Casey was confiding in him about her relationship with Jesse. Cindy saw what she thought was a photo of Jeff and his son Zachary on Casey's cell phone months later, and Casey had Jeff listed as her boyfriend in her phone. Cindy never knew at this point that Jeff and Zachary didn't exist. She is aware that law enforcement tried to find him after Casey had been arrested, and no one of that name worked at Universal. Obviously, there is no Jeff Hopkins. So from Cindy's understanding, from what Casey told her, Jeff's mother was dying of cancer and was getting married. Jeff had no idea he had a child until the mother of his child, Zachary, had died and he got custody of him. Casey wanted to move in with Jeff and both the children someday. That was her goal, really. There were plenty of plans to meet Jeff and his family, but they never happened, so Cindy obviously never met him. Cindy did tell people about Jeff, and it never occurred to Cindy that he didn't exist. I mean, why would you think your daughter was lying about absolutely everything? Next, we move on to Juliette Lewis, and obviously the defence are going through all these people that don't exist. Cindy was told that Juliette Lewis was a co-worker of Cindy's. Cindy never spoke to Juliette and only knew what she looked like through a description that Casey gave her. She never saw a photo or anything. Juliette supposedly had a daughter called Annabelle, but Cindy never saw a photo of her either. Next, we move on to someone called Raquel Farrell, who Cindy believed was Zanny's roommate. Again, Cindy never saw her, never spoke to her, never saw a photo. So we move on to Zanny. Cindy never saw a photo of her, never spoke to her. The first time she heard about Zanny was the same time she was told about Jeff in 2006. Casey told Cindy that it was Jeff's girlfriend and they lived in the same apartment complex, and that Jeff had offered Zanny up to be Casey's nanny or babysitter if ever she needed one. Again, Cindy had no idea that Zanny didn't exist. I mean, why would you? Casey told her that Zanny had long black hair, was very attractive, she was a beautiful person inside and out, and she had a beautiful smile. Cindy and Kaylee never really talked about Zanny when Cindy looked after Kaylee. On one occasion, Cindy noticed some scratches on Kaylee, and Kaylee told her it was a doggy, so Cindy asked Casey about it, and she told her that Zanny had got a new puppy. Casey would talk to Cindy about Zanny like she was one of her friends, and would tell Cindy about Zanny's issues, like her mother being ill, or other personal issues she would be having. Casey also told Cindy that Zanny had a sister called Samantha. Cindy never saw any evidence of these people. And obviously Cindy has only really just found out about all these imaginary people, and as previously stated, Cindy had been searching for Zanny since all this began. They had tip lines, they searched her name, they actually visited an apartment in New York that had come through the tip line. Both George and Cindy wanted to find Zanny. I mean, why wouldn't you? So Baez mentions a guy called Dominic Casey as a private investigator. He actually worked for Baez to start with until they had a fallout, and then he went to help George and Cindy with the tips. Again, she asked if she knew any of these people were made up, and again she said no, she loved Casey and had no reason not to trust her. Why would she? Why? Cindy did tell law enforcement that she thought Zanny might be Amy or Jesse, but also she did tell the FBI she thought it could be Ricardo, but then she says she never told them that she thought Jesse could be Zanny. I guess it's hard from back then with everything going on and 3 years later to remember everything you said. And then Baez sneaks in with asking Cindy if she thinks Kaylee is alive. See, They move on to their home and the photographs that were shown, and there was nothing to stop Kaylee opening the sliding glass door. And Cindy had said previously that Kaylee could get out quite easily. Cindy did think that Kaylee could have drowned in the pool when she went missing. Cindy also told the detectives that the ladder was attached to the pool and the side gate was open, and this alarmed Cindy because they never left the gate open. Cindy had asked George if he had been in the pool and left the gate open. He said no. It was neither of them, so they thought someone must have been swimming in her pool. This was an incident that happened just before the gas can incident. The last time Cindy was in the pool with Kaylee, she's certain she took the ladder off, and she's asked about how certain she is, and she just says she's as certain as she can be. I mean, we all know that we can be certain of something, and the minute we get questioned on it, you do start questioning yourself. In July of 2008, Cindy spoke to someone from Fox News and someone that was an ex-police officer in the O.J. Simpson case. She let them both into the house. They both offered her help. She didn't realise the ex-police officer worked in the media now also. She doesn't remember telling either of them that she had forgotten to take the ladder off the pool. The 13th of July, when they got the towing notice, she said those kinds of letters are never put in the letterbox. They are always put somewhere where they think the recipient will see it. When they got the car back from the tow yard, it was in the garage. It was Cindy's understanding that the smell she was smelling was garbage. That's what she was told. That's what she thought at the time. But Cindy did say in one of her 911 calls that the car smelled like a dead body. And she says the reason she said that was because she wanted the police to get there quicker. So they move on to the 15th of July, and Byers wants to play a portion of the third 911 call where Cindy is on the phone and she sees George pull up and she tells him what's going on. He says something in the background. No idea why this has been brought up because I don't see the relevance to it. You can't tell what George says. So, on that day, Cindy doesn't think George spoke to Casey while this was all going on. He wasn't home until the third 911 call, and shortly after he got home, law enforcement arrived, and at that point they were all separated. Cindy had told law enforcement that Kaylee had been missing from the 7th and also the 8th, when it's actually the 15th. Cindy is a registered nurse but isn't currently working and is on disability due to the stress of all this case. They've actually started a foundation called the Kaylee Marie Anthony Foundation. They've trademarked her name. Byers then asked them if they've made any money off this case. She says no, she's lost a lot of money off this case. And then it is told that in order to pay for one of the attorneys, they sold pictures of Casey and Kaylee to CBS for $20,000, and they paid that attorney a portion of that, which was $6,000, and they kept the rest to pay bills. A book deal had also been made in New York with her ex-attorney, which her and George both went to. So that's the end of the defence. There is a redirect. They start by speaking about Casey's weight, and Casey's weight has fluctuated over the past 3 years since Casey's been incarcerated. The gate pool ladder incident happened a couple of days before the gas can incident. The side gate can be locked from the inside, but Kaylee cannot reach it. George hadn't touched it, so the only person left obviously is Casey. Cindy had also told her co-workers that the car smelled like a dead body, and she said it smelled like nothing she had smelled before. the copyright trademark that they have for Kaylee's name for the foundation is there to stop the exploitation of her name by strangers. There is a recross, it's a quick one. Again, going at Cindy, saying, well, if you say the car smelt like rotting flesh, why didn't you report it? I agree. Byers says to Cindy, so basically all Casey's lies began after Kaylee was born, which Cindy agrees with. He then starts going on about Casey's graduation. They planned a party, they'd invited people, but they were told quite close to the graduation that Casey needed another quarter of a credit for her English, and she obviously didn't graduate and didn't have the party. Don't understand the point to that bit. If you do, please let me know in the comments. I mean, I haven't done a lot of research into this case. I'm just watching the trial and going by the facts in the trial. So if you know, please let me know. And I will be back with another video as soon as I can. Alright, bye for now.